Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the North Affair podcast, Conversations Without Barriers. I'm your host, Doug from Ontario, Canada. Just a couple minutes late here at 3:30 on the 8th of January. Hope everybody is having a good day so far. My day's going all right. Of course, I got to work this evening into the early hours in the morning. Six evidence based solutions to rebuild the housing system here in Ontario, Canada, and can be used right across the country. I want to walk you through six evidence based recommendations that could actually rebuild Ontario's housing system. Not patch it, excuse me, not manage the crisis, but rebuild it. These come from our Crumbling Foundation, a book that lays out 37 recommendations. I've chosen six that form the backbone of any serious housing strategy. These six aren't political slogans, they're not wishful thinking, they're not boutique ideas. They are evidence based, used successfully in countries that have solved homelessness or prevented it from becoming the crisis we see today. Ontario doesn't have a housing crisis because we don't know what to do. We have a housing crisis excuse me, because we stopped doing the things that work. We're going to examine six recommendations one by one and look at the evidence base behind them, the impact they could have, and what it would take to make them real. Build more public housing. Let's start with the most important recommendation: build more public housing. Public housing is the foundation of every successful housing system in the world. Not condos, not luxury rentals, not affordable units priced at 80% of market rent. Public housing. Public housing works. Countries like Finland, Austria, Singapore, and the Netherlands have built large permanent non-market housing systems, and the results are undeniable. Lower homelessness, lower rents, higher stability, stronger communities, less pressures on shelters, hospital, and policing. Public housing is permanently affordable. It doesn't get sold. It doesn't get flipped. It doesn't get financialized. It doesn't disappear when a landlord wants to reposition repurpose a building. Ontario's future. Ontario used to build public housing, then it stopped for 30 years. The result: a shortage of tens of thousands of units, a homeless crisis, a rental market domination by corporate landlords, a generation priced out of stability. The evidence is clear. If you want affordability that lasts generations, you build public housing. If you want to end chronic homelessness, you build public housing. If you want to stabilize rents, and you build public housing If you build the public housing, you build public housing. Everything else is secondary. Recommendation number 2 is retain vacant public land. The second recommendation is simple but powerful. Stop selling public land. Public land is the most valuable tool a city or province has. Once it's sold, it's gone forever. Why public land matters. When governments keep public land and keep it public, they can use it for co-ops, nonprofit housing, supportive housing, public housing, mixed income communities. When they sell it, it becomes condos, luxury rentals, high-end student housing, profit-driven development. And proof is in the pudding, because in the east end of the city, this is what happens when you sell the public land to corporate developers. They build condos, they build luxury rentals, they build high-end student housing, they build high-end housing, and profit-driven for development. They're not going to be building mixed income communities on that property. Cities that retain public land, Vienna, Helsinki, Singapore, have lower rents, more stable housing markets, more mixed income neighborhoods, less displacement. Cities that sell public land, Toronto, Vancouver, London, lose the ability to build affordability at scale. And this is happening in our cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and London, and so on. Ontario municipalities have sold off school lands, hospital lands, surplus government lands, transit adjacent lands, all to private developers. All to private developers. And now we're shocked that we can't build affordable housing. Retaining public land is not just a policy, it's a generational investment. Third recommendation, reinvest in co-op housing. Co-ops are the middle ground between public housing and private rentals. And they're one of the most successful housing models ever created. Why co-ops work? Co-ops offer permanent affordability, community governance, mixed income stability, zero profit extraction, long-term security. They create communities, not commodities. And the evidence, co-ops in Canada have lower eviction rates, higher tenant satisfaction, lower turnover, stronger social cohesion. Countries with strong co-op sectors like Sweden and Denmark have more stable rental markets and lower homelessness. Ontario's failure. Ontario stopped building co-ops in the 1990s. And not only that, what I mentioned the other day, in the 1990s, the Conservative government, and under the leadership of Mike Harris, canceled already funded 17,000 affordable housing units. It was the largest cut of housing in Canada's history. The pipeline dried up, the expertise disappeared, the funding vanished. Reinvesting in co-ops is one of the fastest ways to rebuild affordability because the model already works. We need to fund provincial housing agencies. This is the machinery behind the system. You can't build public housing, co-ops, or nonprofits housing without capital funding, operating funding, planning capacity, maintenance budgets, acquisition funds. And why this matters. Ontario used to have a functioning provincial housing system. It built tens of thousands of units. It maintained them. It planned for growth. Then the province downloaded responsibilities to the municipalities without the money. The evidence, jurisdictions with strong provincial or national housing agencies build more units, maintain them better, prevent homelessness, and stabilizes rents. Without a provincial housing agency, municipalities are left trying to solve a provincial scale crisis with municipal scale budgets, and that comes from property tax owners. It doesn't work. We need to protect the existing housing stock, which we are failing to do miserably failing to do this. This is the fastest, cheapest, most effective way to prevent homelessness. And why this matters? Ontario is losing affordable units faster than it can build the new ones. Older buildings that last naturally affordable rentals are being bought by the REITs, the REITs, corporate landlords, private equity firms. They renovate them, rebrand them, and double the rent. This is called financialization. The evidence? Cities that protect existing stocks through anti-renovation laws, acquisition funds, strict maintenance standards, rent stabilization, lose fewer affordable units and have lower homeless rates. Cities that don't protect their stock, like London, see mass displacement, rising homelessness, skyrocketing rents, loss of community stability. Protecting existing stock is like plugging the holes in a sinking ship. If you don't do it, you're never going to catch up. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. I was a couple minutes late getting out of here. Yeah, so today we're just talking about 6 evidence-based solutions to rebuild the housing system here in Ontario and across Canada. Our Crumbling Foundation, the book that I have read, actually has 37 recommendations to restore Canada's housing. I've chosen 6, the most critical for affordable housing, such as co-ops, social housing, housing with supports. So we're talking about to retain vacancies, vacancy control. So protecting existing housing stock, fund provincial housing agencies, reinvest in co-op housing, retain vacant public land, build more public housing. Retain vacancy control prevents landlords from doubling rents between tenants. Why this matters? Without vacancy control, landlords push tenants out, rents spike, neighborhoods destabilize, older units become unaffordable, and this is exactly what's happening when they when these corporate landlords come and they buy the older stock, so have vacancy control that prevents landlords from doubling the rents. So if that old stock, that old building, if that rent in there was, say $800, so a tenant, well, okay, this tenant can afford to move out. This tenant can, he can go afford to buy a home. So what happens is, well, they double the rent. My understanding of rent control is that in the older stock of housing, up to 2018, your rent can only go up 2.5% annually. Anything built after 2018, there is no rent control, there is no rent cap. So how is it that they can double, triple the rent after somebody moves out that older stock were built before 2018? I don't know. But this is going on. So without the vacancy control, landlords push tenants out. They triple. So the rent spike. Neighborhoods stabilize. Older units become unaffordable. The evidence: vacancy control reduces displacement, stabilizes rents, protects seniors, protects low-income workers, prevents homelessness. It doesn't create new housing, but it stops the bleeding. The 6 pillars of a real housing strategy. These 6 recommendations are not radical. They're not experimental. They're not untested. They are evidence-based, used successfully around the world, and they form the backbone of any serious housing strategy. Build public housing, retain public land, reinvest in co-ops, fund provincial housing agencies, protect existing stock, implement vacancy control. If Ontario did just these 6 things, we would reduce homelessness, stabilize rents, rebuild affordability, strengthen communities, protect working people, and restore dignity. Because housing is not a luxury. Housing is the foundation of everything. And right now, our foundation is crumbling, but we know exactly how to rebuild it. Cities selling city property to high-end developers to build luxury high-rise condos, luxury condo townhomes, luxury single-family homes. It's not just happening right here in London, Ontario. It is happening in other cities all across Ontario. I look around my city and I can see London is becoming another Toronto, and it is becoming even worse and more difficult to afford a place to call home. I've seen the skyline change in the last 8 years so dramatically. And the unaffordability. The skyline that they built downtown are for people who have retired or they're empty nesters. Those rents in the downtown core are anywhere from $2,500 a month to $3,500 a month. I talked yesterday about a living wage, not the minimum wage, the living wage. Cities and provinces determine what a living wage would be for that city. Now, somehow they came up with $21.05 an hour would be a living wage for London, Ontario. That's $40,416 a year. Your rent should be $1,000 a month. That's 30%. That's how they base the rents off your income. 30% is affordability. Not 35%, not 40%, not 45%, or not 50%. 30% of your wage is affordability. So that person making $21.05 an hour can afford $1,000 of rent. You can't rent a one-bedroom apartment in London, Ontario under $1,600 a month. 2 bedrooms are anywhere from $2,000 to $25,000 and higher, depending on the location, depending on the building. If it's a new build, that rent is going to be over $3,000. $21.05 is not a living wage. Over 2,000 people are homeless in the city of London. We only have approximately 600 shelter beds. That still leaves 1,400 people out in the cold, out in tent encampments, sleeping wherever they can find a place to sleep in the outdoors. It costs for 1 month for one cot $1,600. If you have 30 cots in a homeless shelter, the annual cost is $575,000. It's cheaper to house them. It's cheaper to house them. It takes the pressures off of the ERs, takes the pressure off of the policing. That costs money, and a lot of it. $575,000 to run a 30-bed shelter annually. These recommendations, and they're evidence-based, they have been proven to work. They know that they work. Helsinki, Germany's housing stock, their co-op is 12% of their housing stock. We're sitting about 5.5% in co-op housing stock. We need to double that stock. Social housing, haven't built more social housing in 30 years. Government cut off housing spending altogether throughout the 90s. The province of Ontario, they stopped, like I said, they stopped building social housing. The era of Mike Harris, he was the premier of Ontario in 1996. Already funded, paid for, shovels ready, 17,000 housing units he canceled. That was the largest cancellation of housing in Canadian history. This is why today, and without the funding from the federal and provincial governments, leaving the responsibility to municipalities and cities to build your housing, property tax dollars are not meant for that. You will not build enough affordability homes on property tax dollars. It'll never happen. Governments, the federal government, are slowly moving in the direction of housing giving monies to cities, build a percentage of a housing and you'll get more money. And so what cities have been doing, and just like London has been doing, is selling the public land to high-end developers, which in return are not building affordable housing. And they're selling the land at a rapid pace, leaving no room for co-ops and social housing or housing with supports. This is how we do not rebuild the housing stock. That doesn't bring down affordability. The market drives the housing industry. The market drives the housing prices. And when you have a market-driven housing, it just gets a hell of a lot more expensive. When people turn around and say, okay, you know what, we're going to put a development in this neighborhood, it's going to be a co-op housing or it's going to be social housing, people push back. Not in my backyard. We can build mixed income communities. Because it's going to be social housing, it's going to be co-op housing. Somehow, this is going to hurt your investment. Somehow, you think that this is going to lower the price of your home. That's not the case. It's market driven. Market driven. That whether your house prices drop somewhat or your house prices increase somewhat, it's all market driven. It has nothing to do with when we build co-ops or we build social housing or we build supportive housing. NIMBYism is a real thing, not in my backyard. And we need to put an end to that because housing is a human right. I want to thank you for joining me today. Enjoy the rest of your week. Hope you can come and join me again. If you've been on my show before, thanks for coming back. If you're new to the show, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. I try to get out now, as many shows as I can when I can. Lately, it's been the last couple of days in the afternoons. I was able to get out here and do a half an hour segment. I try to put things together for the show that lasts probably around 45 minutes. But if it hits the 30-minute mark, I mean, that's fine. I'm happy with that. But thank you for coming out. I'm going to have this show published up very shortly. Of course, you can go wherever you find your podcast and then go on the North Affair Conversations Without Barriers. You can listen to this whole episode. You can comment. You can share. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. This is the North Affair Podcast Conversations Without Barriers. I'm your host, Doug, from Ontario, Canada. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week.